This is Groove Talk with Froggy Style.
Welcome to another episode of Groove Talk, everybody. On this episode, we are on location at Leopold's Tavern, if you couldn't tell, with the background noise. But I'm joined by Rich and Alex, and they are both part of the band Free the Cynics.
Evening. Yeah, hey, thanks for having us.
Yeah, of course. It's we were just literally talking right before the mic went on, but it's been a while since you guys were last on, like however many years it's been.
3 years maybe?
Yeah, I think you were on like episode like 30 something or something like this, and we're getting into the 90s now. So
Oh, really?
yeah. So yeah, it's been a while. So I guess just to start, why don't you kind of give a little bit of information kind of about yourselves and Free the Cynics?
Well, I'm Rich. I'm a singer from Edinburgh, Scotland. Planted immigrant here in Calgary, Canada. And yeah, we've been in the band for about 5 years now. We've had Free the Cynics going. I think I'm the only original member left. But, yeah, we're about to release a new album next month, and we're pretty excited. New single out this Friday. I don't know when you're going to air, actually. I shouldn't say that.
When is Friday's date? October
23rd.
23rd.
Yeah.
So if this is after October 23rd, the single has already been released.
We've already got it. It's cool.
Yeah.
Are we in the future?
We're in the future, yeah.
And this is Alex Klassen, plays guitar.
So when did I join? Has it been what? It's been a minute now. Yeah.
Big Winter Classic.
Yeah. And was that 2 winters ago then? Just about 2 years ago.
Not the one there, the one before.
Yeah. So just about 2 years. Play guitar. I've been in Calgary for 6, 7 years. I was in Edmonton playing up there with some bands before that, and I grew up north where there's nothing to do but play guitar and drink. So.
Nice sweaters.
Buy nice sweaters. For those of you that are listeners and not viewers, I got a great sweater on.
We got our own fashion range coming out pretty soon. Joey's not invited.
No, he's not.
So I guess how did you end up with Free the Cynics then?
So I knew Brad, who was playing bass before Owen, who's now playing bass. We had played in a previous project. And I knew Brad was a great player, and I just saw him post, and I had checked out the stuff before and thought it was cool. Speaking of the devil, Brad has texted, ears are ringing. Yeah, so when he posted, I just checked it out again, and I was like, sweet, this seems like a no-brainer to come play some guitar with these fellas.
Yeah, it was nice. We've been through a couple of guitarists, so it's a good relief to get Alex in and move pretty quick. And Brad left a year ago now, I think. And that was a big blow at the time because Brad was a big part of the writing process as well as how good he was just as a musician in general. Everyone knows that about Brad. But, Brad moved back up to Edmonton, so.
And being that we only had one guitarist, it's like, I don't know, we were kind of questioning what we'd do, or if it would work, right? Because it was either like, Brad's a busy, talented bass player, and we either needed somebody that could fill those shoes and play big, or we'd need to probably get another guitarist, or somebody on a synth and keys or something. Yeah. So it was, we weren't sure.
Yeah, it was. So we were worried. We've had quite a few member changes, but that was probably the toughest one. I think we auditioned about 12 different bassists. And some of them were great, and not all of them were good, but we got a message from Owen on Instagram. Owen plays in a band called The Grounds, and he seemed pretty confident in his Instagram post. So I thought he was either going to be really bad and cocky or really good and cocky. He was really good and cocky, so that was good. He actually, oddly enough, had just got back from my hometown in Edinburgh. He lived there for a year and a half, and he lived 4 doors down from where I used to live.
Oh wow,
Which is crazy.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah, so She actually knew some of my friends from back home, which is weird. So he'd actually heard the band before, but he didn't tell us that. And we were like, man, this guy knows the songs really well already. Fucking practicing them in Edinburgh the whole time. And Alex and Owen can both sing very well, so it's added a nice new dynamic that we probably didn't have before, and I've always wanted, and it's never really worked out just because we just didn't have people who were really good at singing. So we got a lot more 3-parts and stuff on this album, which we're excited about. And this really helps the songs come out a bit more, especially like Alex said, when there's just the one guitar.
Yeah, to keep it interesting, right? It's like it's just another layer.
Yeah.
Sure. And is Owen the one who played bass on the album?
Yeah. Owen's been with us now for probably a year.
Yeah, so Brad, we got to give him credit on.
Yeah, sorry.
He didn't play, but he wrote
the second song. We wrote that with Brad.
And then, it's kind of it. We were almost working on the last song with Brad right around the time that he was going.
We'll say Brad's 1 1/4 of the 8 songs. Yeah.
More than that, he's coming for us for royalty.
It was. Owen was a breath of fresh air. He's young too. He's fresh and young and cocky. And
the world hasn't crushed him down.
He's been in the band with me for a year now, so he's getting there.
His hairline is holding on. That's good.
Nice. Well, I must say, just from like giving the album a listen, I mean, the sound is full, and like the bass lines that are there, they're interesting and they're like dynamic, and they like add a layer for sure. I would say. It's one of the things that like my ear kind of naturally gravitates towards is like bass, because I play bass and I come from like kind of like a more electronic background, so it's just like a lot of. No worries, I'll have one too. So I just like low end kind of stuff is like what I naturally gravitate towards, but like.
Well, it's a big thing that because when Brad left, it was something we worried about because people know how good Brad is, and we were worried that people were going to be kind of putting a lot of pressure on Owen, and we were worried if Owen might be affected by that, or if the band, if it just wouldn't sound as good. But Owen, luckily, maybe the age thing comes into it again, but he wasn't phased at all, and he's a much different player from Brad. He didn't try and copy Brad, and I think that was important. But in terms of the way that we were writing with Brad, it's the same with Owen. It's really the same process. It's usually Alex or Owen come up with a riff and then things go from there. But it's the same with Brad. So it's been really seamless and it's helped. But I think you're right. The album's a lot bigger this time, I think. And just sound-wise, just generally, it's a bigger album. And I think that's a big part of that.
Yeah, it's really cool because like it sounds fuller and it sounds bigger, but you can still tell that it's you guys, which is really awesome. Like,
you can still spot the fuck up.
No. It's just like the instant you hear it, you're like, okay, this is pretty Cynics. You know what I mean? Like,
that's important. We've always tried to be like that.
Yeah.
We're talking a lot about that because we always try and. I mean, the last 2 EPs, we think all the songs on them have been quite different to each other. Like even on the same EP, they've been quite different. We've always tried to be like that, and I think this album was still like that. But you always know it's us. I think it's important to have that distinctive style as well. A lot of that's sorry to interrupt. A lot of that's to do with Alex. Alex produced the album too, so it's to have someone that's actually in the band producing the album and spending all day and all night on it and things like that. It's been great. He killed it. So.
Fun record to make. Like, I mean, the low end, like the bass was super fun to mix. I mean, we ended up reamping his bass through like a shitload of greasy pedals and amps and stuff, and so lots to work with. Like it was kind of cool. I mean, most of the projects I've done have either been more like folk rootsy stuff where you try to often make like pretty soundscapey stuff with layers and a lot of atmosphere. Or in our studio we've been doing a lot of film stuff, right? And so to do something that's just like pretty straight ahead, like one guitar, one bass, and just to make those try to sound as gigantic as possible was It was fun. It was
I'll
really
give a
fun.
shout out to Paul Orton as well, who did the keys on the
Yeah,
album.
he added some synth. He's so smart at poking stuff in.
Really cleverly placed a lot of the time. Just added just what we need to make it that kind of bigger sound that we needed. Because before we had Ryan, who was the guy's a virtuoso on keys, and he was great. So it was kind of different doing it this way, where it's more. It was just that it was adding a lot to that big sound that we were trying to get. And I think it worked. So,
Yeah, it's cool because there's a lot of sound there, but you can still very distinctly pick out everything. You know, everything sounds full, but you can still also hear all the individual parts, which is like really really cool.
Yeah, I think that's one thing. Is being in a band with just the one guitar, one bass. Generally, you're able to kind of stand out a bit more in the parts.
Yeah.
It kind of helps a little bit when you want to show off just a little bit.
Well, it's scary as a guitarist live, right? Because like with another guitarist, you can hide a bit, right? You can dance, and if you're clubbing stuff, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I mean that was the other thing too when we brought Owen in, because I was thinking like if we get a real stay-at-home bass player and we don't pick up another guitarist, then I've got to get busy, right? And then I have to be busy most of the time on guitar to make it interesting, which is like it's okay, I can do it, but then live. You end up standing there like you're in a prog band, you know, and like, you can't really have that much fun because the parts are so hard. So it's fun that way too. I feel like the two of us managed to, when he's doing something interesting, I get to do less, you know.
The same with Brad. I know, and I really do see Owen as more of a second instrumentalist rather than a bassist. I think the way he plays, he picks out the notes that you'd expect maybe a second guitarist to fill in at certain points. I think it's important with our setup that happens. He did it great.
So how long has this album been in the works then?
Oh man,
we were gonna hit crunch time early in the year pretty hard and try to release in the summer.
Yeah, we were thinking late spring, summer.
Yeah, so we were gonna like hit it. Yeah, I think in February, March, work really hard, and then I was gonna try to mix and master, and we'd have it out like May or something.
Yeah,
and then COVID happened, and we were like, there's not really a big point in rushing. So we tracked it fairly slowly.
That's fine.
Thank you.
But then I think by the time we got done tracking, shows started opening up again, and we all started getting pretty antsy. So then I mixed and mastered it pretty quickly once we actually had all the tracks done.
Yeah, I mean it was kind of nice. We were pretty keen to get it done in the summer because we were aware that 2017 was that last EP, and we'd done a couple of standalone singles, and we've been really busy playing and stuff. But you know, we wanted to get something out there, and we were pretty keen to do a full length. So when we started writing it, we started setting deadlines. It was all spring, summer, and then COVID happened, and we were obviously like everyone else, we were kind of gutted. But it gave us so much more time to really nail it down and probably go over stuff that we might not have went over. Probably added little bits that we might not have done before, and then we didn't have the pressure of the release show.
Yeah.
Because until a month ago, we didn't think there would be a release show.
Yeah.
So that kind of took the seasonal problems of the winter in Calgary out of it and stuff. So then we finished the album, and then Calgary was like, "Hey, you can play release shows now." So now we're doing the release show. Yeah. And that'll be at Dickens on the 13th of November.
Yeah, November, and that's the same date that the album comes
Yes.
out, right? Yeah.
And you can pre-save the album now. If you want to.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. No, if you fucking pre-save it. I need that 0.05 cents a spin.
It's a Friday the 13th, so hopefully it doesn't mean that's going to be the fucking breakout of a corona wave.
Friday 13th, snowstorm, double shutdown for COVID.
Pandemic.
Yeah.
Us playing to nobody.
Yeah.
I think they're streaming it on Twitch, aren't they?
They are, yeah. I got to say, I just want to say a quick thing about Dickens. They've been brilliant throughout this whole thing. They took a hit a lot more than a lot of other kind of pub club venues did, just because their 400 capacity has been taken down to 80 or whatever it is now. But they were really keen to get going again, and they've been really good in giving us the show and everything like that. So yeah, those guys are. I feel like they don't often get the credit they deserve down there, and they should.
I think that's like a lot of venues too. Like people don't realize that like if these venues didn't exist, then we wouldn't all get to go to the things that we love to do. We wouldn't get to see the live music, you know?
100%.
It's devastating,
Yeah.
right?
100%.
I mean, even as I was moving to Calgary, Edmonton ran that new transit line through the artery, right? And like that was our favorite place to play, and it took Phil to set up the AVO. It took him a long time, right? And it's devastating to a scene when you lose.
And it is. We've seen it not just with the shutdown and stuff. We see it all the time.
Oh yeah.
The last place they want to put funding is the arts. The last priority is the arts, right? They don't see, and I understand that obviously there are other priorities, but when it's so low down, when you look at
oil and gas handouts,
but when you see I see other countries giving the arts big boosts. I feel like I would have expected Canada to be one of the countries being at the top of that line, and maybe it's Alberta, maybe it's Canada, but I'm a little disappointed in that it's not being addressed enough. And it's kind of disappointing because I think people would really forget how much they need the arts. I'm not just talking about music either, but when we're sitting at home because we couldn't go out back in March or whatever, the first thing I did was listen to music or watch fucking Netflix or whatever it is. These are all people getting paid to create art and perform art.
Yeah.
I think people don't really quite understand that. And then for the artists themselves, I know for me especially, I know my mental health would be badly affected if I don't have an outlet or a show coming up even. And I just love attention. That's probably half of it. But it's a big thing for a lot of people, and I think maybe people that aren't in the arts could maybe do a little better in understanding that maybe.
Yeah. Well, especially I don't know, I feel like if you do get into the scene, whether it be the music scene or they all are kind of is ingrained in each other. You know what? Music goes along with visual art, goes along with video art, goes along with
you can't have a band without without a producer. You can't have a photographer wanting to do band shots if there's no band, or vice versa.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot that goes in. I don't want to get too political because nobody wants to hear me do that. But back in the UK, the UK government, the Tory government, released an advert, and it was a picture of a ballet dancer saying that, and her name was Fatima, and they said Fatima could get a job in cyber. She just doesn't know it yet. And that was a government-sanctioned advert that they released and quickly pulled back because of the backlash. But that attitude right there is the problem, there. And I know it's not the top priority, I get that, but that is... I didn't hear them saying Bill could get a job in photography when the bankers all went bust. I didn't hear any adverts like that. Sorry.
You got to bail out those banks.
Right? or Bob the pipe fitter, right?
Yeah.
Whatever.
No, and not to take away from any other industry at all. But it's not. It's just that disrespect and disregard for those flaky arts people that we don't really need music. There's already loads of music. We can listen to that. It's just.
Yeah, it's a systematic devaluing, right?
Yeah.
And at a time when I think too, when it's you have to acknowledge that I think the world's looking at more automation. Probably looking at guaranteed basic income in our lifetime that's going to actually just allow people to make art, because so it's weird that we're still kind of clinging to these older ideas that's not a valid.
No, totally. And imagine a world without art, you know what I mean?
There's not a world without art.
No, that would be no music, no TV or movies, no
horrific.
visual art, it would be terrible. It would be the worst thing.
You look at even on the back end of art that's made. Talk about a film that's been made. You think about the jobs it's created.
Oh, yeah.
Talk about. We know we're lucky enough to know Hans Grossman pretty well, who does a lot of work in the film industry, and he's done some great stuff on Fargo and stuff like that. And he, things guys like him, the amount of work that goes into those sets, and you're talking about runners, you're talking about the actors, you're talking about all those crews.
Yeah.
I think that people don't quite understand how important that is. Speaking about Hans, we're releasing a video for the single on Friday, or we did release the single on Friday.
One of the two.
Yeah, and he's done the video for us, and we're very excited about that.
Yeah, it was a blast.
He's a proper professional.
Yeah.
And one of the most fun days I've had was doing that video. We did it in the Thrift Couture shop on 17th Ave, just beside Olympic Billiards. And Jillian there was kind enough to let a bunch of us go down and just ruin our shop.
Yeah, pretty much.
I feel like, I don't know, within the last couple of years, there's been like a resurgence of music videos, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it was really big in like the 90s and early 2000s, like when Much Music and MTV were a thing, and they were actually playing music videos and not just reality TV. But I feel like it died out a little bit there. But like with the like YouTube and stuff like that, there's been like kind of a resurgence of music videos, and I really dig it. So
Well, I think you can. I mean, there's all the drawbacks of technology. I think in terms of like streaming services paying us nothing and all these things. And the only reason that hasn't destroyed the art scene is that we can also record ourselves and make videos like guerrilla style. Like Hans is so talented, so experienced, and the price he was able to give us to make a super high quality product, right? That would have cost the equivalent in the 90s would have cost record
Double,
label money, right?
yeah, you would not have been able to do it if you weren't signed to a record label.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, it goes always. I mean, even with stuff like what you're doing right now. I mean, you know, it takes someone that has a real passion for music and art to want to sit and do this every month with a different bunch of fucking dickheads in a pub, talking about themselves for an hour. But I'm in heaven. You know, I think there's just so many people that in Calgary that are just really step up and really. I don't want to kiss too many asses, but you know, people like Matt Berry and Lisa and all the people at CDSW. You got all the promoters and stuff and all the venues. Dan at the Palomino and the chef and. I'm going to miss a million people out because Calgary's lucky to have all of these people. If you keep shitting on all those people for long enough, you're not going to keep doing it. They've still got bills to pay. They've still got stuff to do. Right?
And I think people don't realize that a lot of people are doing this just because they love to do it. They're not getting paid that much.
It's the only reason.
Yeah, exactly.
Nobody's getting paid. Who the fuck is getting paid anymore?
Who's getting paid? Like,
it's not fucking us, that's for sure.
Yeah. And like every single person I talk to, they're not getting paid to do this shit.
And I think that's something bands are going to have to get used to for the next long while, is that they're not going to get paid as much for shows, which I'm okay with, because obviously it's that or you don't play a show, right?
Like it goes towards the venues now, right?
And bands will play for free, that's fair, but it's you're going to have to take a big cut, and get paid for shows is probably a main income for bands.
Well, and at least it hopefully, being in a somewhat established band, it hopefully means that it's a free hobby, Like, it hopefully means that when you go play in Lethbridge or Edmonton, or if you go to BC or something, at least the gas and hotels are paid for, and when you need photos or you need merch, it's like there's a band account for that.
Yeah.
But, we're dwindling, right? Because there's no show income right now, so it's like we want to make some shirts.
Plus, we were very laissez-faire with the band account.
Yeah, when I joined, there was a couple expensive...
the band account was looking really good for a while there. We went on tour with Black Pistol Fire, and
which I'm trying to blame
that paid us pretty well. And then we started paying band bar tabs and stuff.
But we had to put up some money for the music video. And I'm like, shit, I haven't had to put up money. Not that I didn't. It's just money that I would have put up for that bar bill.
I guess.
But that said, usually these things are at least, you're not making any money, but it's like, at least it's covered. It kind of floats, right?
Yeah.
I think as long as bands know they're being treated fairly, then a bit of a cut and they're getting paid for shows is fine.
And then I haven't given Rich the bill for me producing the record yet, right?
That's the reason we hired him. He's not getting paid. He's like buying sweaters like this every day. The self-production thing really did. It's a huge thing, because Kirill at Sound Priory did the last well, the last two EPs plus the singles we did on top, and he's fantastic. Like everyone knows how good Kirill is. But obviously, even if Kirill was to give a good rate, it's a business he has, and he still has to run it. So
Yeah, and you don't want to short your friends, you know? Like, that's the thing. It's like when you're working with photographers or Hans or any of these people, it's also like you know how talented your friends are, and you want to pay them what they're worth.
You want to give them the money.
We played a show for them, which they weren't paid. Yeah, I think that is probably the way things are going with self-production and that kind of thing. As long as it's not a hit on quality, then it's not a bad thing, I think.
Well, and that's the thing too, like with all the technology that we have nowadays, like you can get a completely professional sounding record out of somebody's basement or garage or whatever the fuck it is. Like you can get the same quality sound that you could get like back in the 90s or 80s or whatever it is in your fucking basement. Like
It's pretty crazy.
Well, I've heard a couple of friends even do some garage band stuff. Usually kind of solo stuff. I'm like, that's impressive for you sitting there with your laptop. Like that's.
Oh yeah, and if you're not getting into live drums, I mean, because I think you've also got a second wave of just like hip hop in the '80s, so driven by like socioeconomics, not having access to big studios, right? Birth this type of music that can be made with simple recording setups, vinyl sampling, right? You've got a second wave of that happening, right? Where, because once you get into like real drums, then now you need an interface, and you need preamps, and you need good mics, and you need a room, and then the price goes up, right? So especially, right, if you've got singer-songwriters or people doing hip-hop or EDM or pop, then it's like, you need a few $100 worth of software packs and plug-in packs, and like you can make magic. Right?
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, no, it's a long time. I don't know. This is the most enjoyable recording I've ever done. Just because I'm quite antsy, and I don't love sitting in the studio for a long time. But it was a lot easier this time, I think, just because we had a bit more time. And
Well, you knocked them out anyway.
yeah, we got things knocked out pretty fast.
I think we did 2 that Friday night.
Yeah, I think we're a lot less wasted than we were for the last 2 records. That probably helped. Yeah, it was a little more focused. A little more, not too. But yeah, no, I want to give a shout out to Ainsley from the Third Chats and God Spilled the Milk. So she came in and did a couple of gang vocals that we were doing, and then she did a kind of unplanned backing vocal on the last track on the album, right at the outro. It was a Sunday. We were all feeling pretty rough, and
She's like, just give me that end part. I'll try some things. And we're just like, holy
what was that?
shit.
Two takes?
I think she did 2 takes. And the second one she did, she's like, you want me to do more? I was like, nah. That's it.
We're good.
I remember walking out of the booth, I was like, damn, I nailed that vocal. Then she goes in, I'm like, fuck's sake. But yeah, I'm excited for people to hear that part. It's a good way to close off the album. And that was a song we had trouble with, because it's kind of it's not the chirpiest song on the record, so it's quite a heavy kind of song in terms of lyrics and that kind of thing. So we didn't want it to drag too much, and then but when she came in, it was it's a great payoff right at the end. Like really, I listened to it probably 25 times the first day I got sick.
That's
And a fellow ginger, so that's all.
That's a super cool thing about the Calgary music scene that I found too. Is people are just willing to help each other out. Whether it's backing vocals on somebody else's EP or album or whatever it is, or just people agreeing to do interviews with me, or everybody is so friendly and so accepting, and
I'm glad that you brought that up. I'm glad that people realize that here.
Yeah.
Coming from back home, I love Edinburgh, my favourite place in the world, but the music scene, and not just Edinburgh, the UK in general, probably a lot of other places too, it's really, there's a lot of kind of gnarly competition, unnecessary kind of competition that goes on that really it doesn't need to happen, and it really just puts people back, and I don't really see that here at all. I'm talking about since I've been playing in this band 5 years, I can count on one hand the amount of times someone's been like that, or even I've heard someone being like that. People who really do want to help.
Yeah.
Unless they really fucking hate you, then they will.
Yeah.
That's fair. I've also had a lot of that. But no, like people are a lot more I think it might be just a Canadian thing, that honestly. I think it's just a friendly thing that you guys could teach a lot of people how to be a bit more like that. But it's definitely, we asked Ainsley within 2 minutes she got back and said yes. And then we fucked her about as well because we kept rescheduling for whatever reason.
Oh yeah, she was just so accommodating.
And she was like, "No, it's cool, whatever." She understood that, we were trying to record the album and get stuff done. And she was amazing. She came in, she was just brilliant.
I even had the funny thing, I don't know if I told you this, but when I was buying mics to set up my studio space, there was a few of kind of like the default mics that you need, right? And I bought one off Pat. They already at Public Lunch. And I had not met Pat before, right? Because I've been in Calgary for a bit now, but I wasn't really playing in the scene. So he's got a garage studio that, in a lot of ways, looks a lot like the studio I just set up, right? And like, he could be a dick or something, right? Or like be like, oh, there's like a new studio on the block, or like competition. And he was just like the kind of, when I go to buy the mic, he gives me like a tour of his space and we shoot the shit. And we're just, right? It's just like, it's a cool scene. It's a really cool scene.
He's also, Public Lunch is doing pretty good. I think
he's doing just fine. He's not too worried about me taking a chip.
Yeah. But I mean, so Alex's studio, not to plug it too much, but Zebra Vision there, it's fantastic. Brand new, amazing space, great sound. And Alex is fine, I guess, to work with. Reasonable. He's a very patient man.
Did you guys feel like you had more control over this release? Like having, obviously the engineer and the producer is in the band. Did you feel like you had maybe a little bit more control over this release compared to other ones? Or?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And again, Kirill, I love Kirill a bit.
Yeah.
He's a good friend of mine and a great musician, fantastic producer. But anyone that's in a band, if they have one of their bandmates that's able to do that and to do it well, because I was a little worried at first when Alex brought it up. So I thought, what if it's not as good as Kirill's? Because that's a problem, right? But as soon as I heard a couple of things Alex had done before, it was a no-brainer. But it does. We have full control over everything, and the time constraints, the financial restraints are gone. Alex can be a lot more honest with me and with the band. If it's someone sending shit, not that Kirill wouldn't have told me, but Alex would just say, "No, Rich, you fucked that up. Do it again." So it's a lot easier, I think, just all round, which I'm sure Kirill would say about his own band. It's just easier to tell your own band that they're fucking up and they're sucking. So it's not as big it's not as awkward or anything like that. And again, just the time and the money is the main thing.
I mean, that's the thing is like, cause even when we were chatting with Ainsley and stuff, it's like what's the pricing to do projects? And, I have a day job, right? Like I'm not full-time recording, and so for me, it's like I want to do passion projects. If I can make a reasonable amount of money here and there to buy new gear and shit, that's cool. But like, this is. I'm not asking the guys for any money, so we're just gonna do it right, and we're gonna take the time. We're gonna shoot out the mics. We're gonna screw around, and we're gonna get the right takes. Right?
I bought my beer in 2019, so actually. But no, I would recommend. I'm biased, but I'd recommend everyone go for a wee tour of the studio if they're looking for a place to record.
Yeah, it's a sweet space.
Really nice. And downtown as well, which
Yeah, and that's like the hub of music in Calgary.
Yeah.
So.
I never like to be too far away from Leopold.
That's totally fair. I live so far in the south.
Oh, you do? I should come all the way up here.
I came from work.
Oh, you did? Oh,
it's
sorry.
Fine, but yeah, I live like Somerset Bridlewood is as far south as you can go. I live in Somerset.
Yeah. Oh shit! Well, at least you're on the train line though.
Yeah. We're good, but it's fine.
Yeah, I used to live up in the northwest. It was always a bit of a hassle getting downtown, but we jam in the northwest, so that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think what else we need to say about the album? I don't know, man.
So do you guys have like
Piss anyone off yet? That's good. we're doing a big round of press at the moment, and I'm just getting it going, and I just every time there's always one little thing I'm like, why did I say that? I get too drunk, the guy in this band's a fucking prick. I love how Canadians don't hate each other, but fuck this guy. Or girl.
We were talking about, because you guys played a show not too long ago at the Wild Horse Saloon.
Yeah.
We were talking about that before we started the recording, but I guess kind of maybe just like, what was that like? It's like probably one of the first shows back. And
I think it was the first show with vocals back in Calgary, as far as I know. Honestly, we didn't have much time to prepare. And it was a great show. I mean, it was Live Nation. They always kill it, you know. And it was the crew from the Palace did the sound and everything. So, I mean, it was always going to be a good gig. And the sound in there was brilliant.
Yeah, the sound guy was awesome.
I hope we can do that, keep that place going or put it up again. But it was odd. It was strange. I mean, we've done a couple of shows before where the crowd had been sitting down because that's just how the venue had it or whatever. But when it's enforced and it's odd. Like, I'm not gonna lie. For us it's odd. We kind of feed off that crowd energy, right? And especially for me being a singer with no instrument up there, like.
The redeemer for it was that, I mean, the stage, it sounded really good, and then they had really good lights and fog. So it kind of made you forget that everybody's just sitting there looking at you. Right?
Yeah.
It made you feel kind of cool anyway, right?
Yeah. No, we were like I said, I think we got the call 5 days before the show or something like that. Yeah. And we weren't going to say no to it. And I Am the Mountain we're supporting, and the Varmers, who we love already. So we were like, this is a no-brainer. We're taking the show, but we hadn't jammed for months.
Recording.
We were just recording, and only recording the new stuff. And it's not like we were doing a live recording, so we were really tight on playing the songs all the way through. So, and some of these songs on the album, at that point, they'd only been written for a couple of weeks or a couple of months. Some of the lyrics weren't even finished, when we were doing the album. So, it was a little daunting, but everyone, like it always does with these things, it worked out great, and it was a really great show, really fun show. And they treated us really well, and although the crowd sitting down it does have its disadvantages, but again, kind of nice to see people. You can really gauge their real reactions when they're sitting, kind of concentrating right on you. You know what I mean? So it was kind of nice because we had all these new songs that people hadn't heard, and it was kind of good to see the reaction to them. To see, it really helped when we were doing the album track listing.
Yeah.
To see where, the big ones in terms of energy were and things like that. Maybe where we needed to slow it down a bit. I don't know. It's going to be like this for a while, so we just got to get used to it. But I enjoyed it. I had a great time, and we played well, which I had to. If we played shit, I'd probably say, the sound was terrible. But the Palace crew killed it. Great. And, it was a lot of fun, but definitely a strange. Just the whole atmosphere was a bit odd, just because you couldn't move, the crowd couldn't move between tables to say hi to each other, that kind of stuff. So it's kind of odd where you don't have that kind of crowd mentality where people are jumping up and down. Yeah, and there was notes on the table for the crowd not to sing back to the band and stuff.
Yeah, they didn't want to project.
Yeah, that was kind of weird. So, but we didn't know that when we were up there, right? So we were like, we finished our set. Yeah. We finished our set, and we were like, fuck it, we'll do one more. And we're like, do you want to hear one more? And I was like, yeah. So we did this one song, which is a really old song that was on our first EP. And half the song is just ohs, right? I mean, it's just written for live stuff. So I'm like, okay, put the mic out to the crowd for them to sing, and I'm like, you can see them kind of singing, but I was like, wow. I thought this gig went really well. They're kind of unengaged, and then I got off, and they're like, yeah, we're not allowed to sing. I was like, But no, I think bands are just going to have to get used to that atmosphere. And I got to say, they did it. The Wild Horse tent did it brilliantly. Yeah. It was so professionally done with Live Nation, the Palace. I mean, those guys were always going to be professional, so you knew it was going to be good. But definitely strange. Maybe we'll have to look at the way we play live as well, which is something we've never really had to think about in terms of putting a lot of thought into the actually what you're doing on stage. Like we're always, I think we're always tight. Like we work hard on that. But in terms of like getting the crowd going when it's a whole different kind of crowd, that's something that's a little different.
Yeah, well, because I'm sure, as a band playing live, you kind of feed off the energy of the crowd, right? Like if the crowd's jacked up,
100%.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, there's usually, for me, there's 2 or 3 things that need to happen for a great show, and we got to be tight, we got to play well, the band have got to perform, and the crowd have to be really into it. The crowd for me as the front man, that's my main thing there.
Yeah.
That's what I need to feed on. So that's something I'm going to have to get used to. A lot of other people are going to have to get used to. You're not going to really be able to have the crowd up right in your eyes, feeling your sweat and your spit, right?
Yeah, right at the stage line or whatever.
Yeah, and honestly, I think about places like the Palomino, and, like downstairs in the Pal there. It's one of my favourite venues to play just ever, really. I love that place. But the big allure for that for me is it's sweaty and it's packed and it's right. You're almost on top of the crowd there. So it's just something that we'll just have to get used to, and I'll have to maybe adapt the way I am on stage. I don't think it affects the other guys too much. Right? They'll always perform that way and be lively, and a lot of the interactions with each other, right? So I think for them it's a little easier, but definitely I don't often feel self-conscious when I'm on stage, but with those sit-down gigs, it's definitely something that creeps into my mind just a little more than normal. Yeah. And then you get past the first or second song and you're good. But,
yeah, you're on there. Yeah, no, it's one of my favorite things is like those sweaty, intimate shows, you know what I mean? Where it's maybe 50 to 100 people packed in some dingy basement. The band's right there, and it's just like everybody's just...
Yeah. It's easy to discount how much like being next to some sweaty, stinky dude is part of the whole thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we have a lot of sweaty lady fans also. Give my wife a shout out right now. She won't listen. It's unfortunate, but just the way it's going to have to be for a while, I think. Quite a long while, I feel. I guess we'll see.
I also have to piss. I'll be right back.
Yeah.
Did you just go listen to us in the toilet?
That's exactly what I did.
That's the best place to hear us.
Yeah, exactly. But after seeing you guys live a couple of times now, I think the first time I talked to you, I hadn't seen you perform. But after seeing you guys perform live a couple of times now, do you guys bring like this energy to your performances? And I don't know if it's because like you do have like a dedicated front person. You know what I mean? You have a front person you have a front man who is not playing an instrument and like is basically there to like sing and also like kind of feed off the crowd. You know what I mean? I just I guess I kind of want to know your thoughts on that. Is that something that you always kind of like? Is it something you think about, or?
Sometimes when I'm not playing, I think about it. I think because I've been doing it a while now, so it's a little better. There was a band back home where I played guitar while I sang. I found it really restrictive. I'm also not very good at guitar, just but I really didn't like it at all. Like I really hated it actually. I felt there was like a barrier there, and I didn't like it. I felt it was clumsy and it was clunky. Not just the way I played, just like having something there. And maybe because I'd been used to not having it there. But I don't think I could do that again. I think maybe it does add to that, to why maybe people like us.
We can start like putting an acoustic guitar on you that's like backwards, like hanging off the back, and he never actually grabs it.
Like a Bono guitar. Call Bono one more time.
What are they going to do the acoustic one, and then they just don't? Good night. Put the acoustic down.
That's when the sound goes off. No, I've never really thought about it as a collective thing, but for me, I'll definitely have to perform. I don't want to say have to perform because I never really feel, unless it's a shit gig, unless it's fucking nothing, there's a bad gig, things are just not going right. And we've been lucky, it's not happened much.
Yeah, we haven't had too many duds since I started.
But unless it's that scenario, I never feel like that. When I'm on that, I never really think about it. It's never really something I'm that conscious of. Oh, it sounds so wanky. I never think like, oh, I should like turn round now, or like, oh, I need to act extra like jumpy on this song, or like, and then sometimes I'll play shows and I'm like, man, I was like jumping about like crazy, and then I'll see a video of the show and I'm like, oh, I'm pretty slow moving. I thought I was going fucking nuts up there, but I don't know. I honestly, again, it comes down. A lot of it comes down to the energy of the crowd, but
Yeah.
it's not something I really think about that much.
In the writing process, it's odd, right? Like I mean, in most case scenario, you've got your front person is playing piano or guitar or something, and they've probably sketched out most of the rhythm and the vocals together. You know, and all the bands I've played together have always been that way.
No.
And I mean, it's an interesting writing process this way, because when we're at a jam, you know, Rich has got I think Owen and I have just been writing a shitload of riffs. You show up with them, we start jamming, and Rich is either like, oh yeah, and he'll start singing, or it's kind of like, meh, and then when it's meh, you just throw it out.
Yeah.
And it's honestly, as a guitarist, it's kind of hard to know. I've written some riffs that I'm like, this is a banger of a riff, and it hasn't inspired, and you just throw it out, kick it to the curb. And I think Owen's been good about that too. You know,
It's the way we write. I think it's not like how most bands really write. We had bands before, even at the start of this band, it was me and the guitarist sitting in a bedroom. We'll come up with something, and whereas now, since Brad joined the band, that was kind of how it went. When it was Brad and Eric at the time, and they would come up with a riff, one of them or both of them, and then if I felt it was something I could get into and start, I'd sing over it and see where it went. And there's some songs where we've been like, it's not working, and then we go back to them and we're like, fuck, actually, that's a real, like the last one on this album.
Yeah.
It was one that we could get right, and it wasn't working. And we played it live once, and
and we played it poorly live.
And we thought, I'll only do this once.
Yeah.
The name of the song. And I was like, and it didn't really work out. And then now I'm like, fuck, I really love that song. But that's probably a rarity for us, really. I think most stuff that's really going to work for us comes together real quick.
Yeah.
And I think that's a lot of that's down to Alex and Owen just coming up with really good stuff. Like, if it's not good, I don't want to spend an hour.
There's no sense getting attached.
Yeah.
I mean, like when you zoom out and think of how fucking stupid it is, right? It's like it's a stupid guitar riff. You know, the idea of getting like attached to this, it's ridiculous, right? and I think Owen's great about that.
And then I feel bad because they're like buzzing off these riffs. I'm like, nah, that's fucking shit.
Yeah.
I'm not singing over that. Nah. And they're like, but it's really good. I'm like, nah. And then I feel bad, right? Then one of them has to give me a ride home, and then
one of them, it's in the
Luckily it's 90% gone. No, the right process. I like it a lot better the way we do it. I find it a lot more like natural to just I think when it comes together in the room like that, everyone has that feeling together, rather than being like, me and my guitarist love this song. Yo, bassist, drummer.
Yeah,
do this, and they're like, no, we don't really love this.
Shit.
Whereas if it's all together, like, I mean, I think of the songs of ours I like the most, probably came together in half an hour, like the main crux of the song anyway. Like, you just know, because you know what's happening. You all look at each other in the room and you're like, you got that feeling. And I don't care what fucking drugs you love taking, or what's your favourite beer or whatever. That right there, that feeling is a belter of a feeling.
That's a feeling.
When you're in that room and that happens, like that's a good feeling. And I got that feeling with the songs on this album, apart from the last song, which took a lot of fucking work, which is why I kind of see this album as a labour of love, and that song is why I think like that. And it's because it took us a lot of work, and we don't usually do that. If something's not working right away, after half an hour, we'll usually ditch it. But with that one, it took a lot of work, and now I'm happy we did it. But yeah, usually it's quick. Yeah.
That's good. I mean, like, I feel like people who don't create like that are missing out on that feeling. You know what I mean? Like, it is one of the greatest feelings that, like,
when you're just finding it instead of creating it.
I can count on fucking my fingers and toes how many times it really happens. Right? Like when you really get that feeling, like when you know it's going to be a total banger.
And when you've been doing it for a while, I think you have less capacity to want to fucking talk about it. You know, like there's nothing worse than when it's obviously not working when you're getting in debates over what it sounds too much like or what it should be instead. And you know, it's just like I remember doing that so much in younger bands, right? And
it's because you have an attachment to it. So if you've written
everyone's
it,
got an idea of what it is, and it's not what it is. It's just what you think.
Well, then the problem's like you're like, yeah, but I wrote this about my fucking dead fucking whatever. You're like, well, sorry, but the song sounds shit. So fuck your dead grand. Sorry.
So yeah, I think as soon as it gets into that conversational space. I think either come back to it and see again because maybe it's there and you've done too much for the day, or sometimes
it depends what you've been doing at the time. And sometimes we'll go through stages where we're writing a certain way and it works for that, and then 6 months later you'll be like kind of feeling in a different way of writing, and that song actually does work out. I think the biggest thing is having the lack of ego. Already hear everyone fucking laughing at that.
It's a funny contradiction because it's like you're playing in a rock band where you clearly need to want attention because who gives a fuck if not? Why are you playing other music if you don't want people to pay attention to your bass riff and your guitar riff and your vocals?
Yeah, it's true.
Right? And I feel like Joey is the subtle one in the band. He just holds it down. And actually, he's pretty flashy on some of this new stuff, but in a very Joey smart way, right?
Joey's something that I just love watching him playing out. We hired Joey and I knew Joey was good, that's why we got him in the band. Joey was, by his own admission, he was probably 70% the drummer he is now. He just, he's come on so far, and I think having Brad in the band there was probably a big thing for Joey, just because Brad was also a drummer, but his primary was a bassist, but Brad was so intense and busy in the way he played that Joey, he had to really keep up and change his style a bit. It's really hard for a drummer to change his style anytime ever, especially a drummer. That's a hard thing to do. Joey killed it, and Joey's a real pupil. He's a really Joey studies music a lot, and I like that about him a lot. And he turned me on to a lot of music I probably would never listen to before, and he has a real precise ear for stuff, and he just came on so much. This album here, it's the best I've ever heard him play.
Well, I know, he went to that Drumeo festival before it. He's a drummer's drummer, I think, in a lot of ways, right? And in terms of mixing them, just really easy. He hits so consistently, attention to detail, his tempo is great, just a really easy drummer to mix. He knows when to step out and step in. It was really nice to record him.
Smart. You definitely made the drums shine on this recording because someone again, it's something as just as a music fan, I pay attention to different it's not the song as a whole. I pick out each individual bits of I don't know if that's coming from a production side of things or that's just how but some of the cymbal work that he does.
I was just gonna say that there's a couple of things I didn't even notice until the fourth or fifth listen to the album, and I was a couple of songs, I can't remember exactly. He did a triplet on this hi-hat triplet on this, I forget what song it was, but it shouldn't have worked where he put it, but it just killed. And I was just I rewound it 4 times. I was like, fuck it, that's good.
Well, and
2 years ago, he might not have had the confidence maybe to do that.
And as an engineer, it was great because, you're forced to do the work if the band doesn't sometimes, right? And he showed up with like 3 sets of hi-hats, 3 sets like of cymbals, drums tuned beautifully, like, you know, the stuff that it's like, it all came from him, where he's like, I'm going to try these really thick hi-hats on this one, and we'd move the mics around and figure it out.
I feel like Joey got re-inspired at some point. I felt like that for a while. I think he got really, something kind of woke up in him a bit, and he really started really going, and he just loved it. Like, he's just obsessed with everything. He'll practice all the time at home, and Joey's a stoner. Joey doesn't like having to do shit. But this is the one thing, which is why he's not fucking here. Right? But that's one thing he gets a real love from, and maybe that's not always been the case. Maybe I'm wrong, but since I've known him, he's way at the top of his game at this point.
The drums definitely shine through on this album for sure.
Well, he had a lot of time in the studio. Him and Alex, they were like together for the whole. They put all the drum tracks down just to both of them, so they were everything Joey wanted, Alex could do, and it was perfect.
Yeah, that's awesome. Like I said, just some of the fills and like some of like the hi-hat patterns and stuff like that are just, they're phenomenal. Like the way that they come through on the song are just, it's great.
Yeah, I was a little bit worried that, so the last time was a song that I liked it, and I knew I thought it was album worthy, but Joey brings that one out. It's probably the most indie song on the album, and I think Joey brings it out a lot, and he kind of makes it pop a bit more than just the kind of intro and the verse. You can see where it's going, and he gets into those breakdowns before the choruses, and you just don't see it coming at all. You're just like, damn, that's pretty fucking good. So stuff like that, I think, is something that he might not have done a couple of years ago. Yeah. He might have wanted to do it, but he maybe wouldn't have felt the confidence to do it.
100%. So the album is called Diogenes?
This is going to be a problem. Diogenes. Yeah.
Diogenes.
Yeah, sorry, we should have probably started with this.
This is the first time we've mentioned
No, this is my first thing that's come. I was like, hey, explain what that is. And started talking about politics and all. So Diogenes was...
Diogenes.
Diogenes.
Okay.
So, this man was... We think we know our rock and roll star. This man was a fucking animal. So, back in ancient Greece, at the time of Plato and Alexander the Great and all those, he was also doing his thing, and he was known as Diogenes the Cynic.
Yeah.
So that obviously kind of perked us a little bit, and we looked into it. So I'm just gonna give you a couple of very short stories, but please look into it. The guy he was insane, beautifully insane. So he was a Greek philosopher, but he fucking hated Plato with a passion. And this is whenever Plato was revered as the greatest mind, and he just didn't believe it. He didn't like him. He didn't think he was genuine. He didn't like the shit he was saying. So he went to one of Plato's talks, and I don't know how to say this nicely, but he did a silent protest with his feces to show Plato how he felt about it. Things like that. Just not that I'm condoning shitting. Don't come to our gigs and shit in the seat. Shit, no, we're doing seat down gigs. Don't shit in our fucking gigs. But stuff like that, and then there was one time where Alexander the Great was intrigued by Diogenes. He wanted to meet him. So when he went to meet him, Diogenes was lying sunbathing, and Alexander the Great walked up and said, "Hi, I'm Alexander the Great. What do you have to say to me?" And Diogenes said, "You're in my son." Just not phased at all. And he took a cynical approach to pretty much every outlook when there was two choices. And I don't feel like we're cynical as people, really. I like to think we just question a lot of things, and that's where the band name comes from. And I think people often feel like people that are cynical are negative. And I don't think that's true.
I agree.
I really don't like. I don't like when people say that because I don't think it's true. But this guy, he really went with it. But then he also just started ditching all of his possessions. He thought he didn't need any possessions. So he started sleeping in a huge wine cask in the middle of this market in ancient Greece. So he'd just wake up every day and there'd be this famous Greek philosopher just waking up naked. Didn't give a fuck, just gave up on what people thought about him. And I don't care what anyone says. We all want to live like that. We all want to live that way. To not care what anyone thought, to be able to just walk around, do what the fuck you want. The people you hate that everyone else loves, you can tell them to fuck off. You can go to their fucking shows, you can go to their performances and make it very clear you don't fucking care that everyone else likes them. You don't fucking like them. You're not putting up with their crap. And I think it's probably the most rock and roll thing I've ever heard in my fucking life. And it happened in ancient Greece. So it just felt, once we found out about this, it felt natural to call the album that. I think it would be odd if we didn't reference that. And then there's a song on the album called Diogenes Market, which is written from his point of view, which is something I've never done before. And it was actually a lot more enjoyable than I thought it was going to be. A lot easier than I thought it was going to be. Yeah. The material's already there, right? Like, all the stuff's already happened. You don't have to make anything up. Yeah, I'd urge everyone to look into Diogenes. He was the first rock and roll star for sure. Yeah. Him and Keith Richards would have a pretty good time, I don't know.
It's actually funny because I saw the album name and I read it as but like I know who Diogenes is. You know,
no one really knows how to fucking say it.
Like I know, as soon as you say it, I'm like, oh, I know that. I know that guy. Like I know the stories about him.
Yeah.
Like,
he was kind of like shunned a little bit by the Platos of the world because he was acting in that way. But there's something about that really appeals to us. I think.
He was like the first punk rock guy to ever exist.
Whoever thinks they're the first person to take a shit at a band they hate's gig, they're fucking wrong because it was Diogenes at Plato's gig. That's what happened. Yeah. There's a bunch of shit between him and Plato. You gotta look it up. I can stay here all night. It's the best. The guys, I just love him. And he had a wonderful beard. That's another.
Maybe there was somebody before him, but it's not recorded. But I think he was like the first.
I think because of his status at the time as such a.
He's the Kurt Cobain to cynicism.
Yeah.
There's probably other people that were doing it, but he really nailed it.
No, we just felt all of us felt an instant connection. It was Joey that kind of brought it up, and we were like, fuck that. But we were a little worried because we were like, if you go start naming your albums after Greek fucking philosophers, people are going to think you're being pretentious.
Yeah, it's like,
but then I think if you explain Diogenes, that you can't be pretentious. He was an absolute filth bag. And I don't know, I feel like a little bit of that encapsulates what we are as a band. I think he has a lot of he certainly felt he had a lot of important things to say in a very good way, which he did. But also, he had that side to him where he just had a lot of cynicism in him and wanted to question everything, no matter how unpopular it made him. And
it's kind of a dirtbag.
Just a piece of shit. Yeah. So that's us. That's it.
He's the original dirtbag for sure.
Original rock and roll star. Until I die, I'll stick to that. I'm getting a tattoo of him on my body very shortly. Because our new single, our new or old single, depending when you're hearing this, the artwork is a picture of Diogenes' face with Free the Cynics on it. So we're glad we could encapsulate that in the.
Yeah, no, that's super cool. Like I said, it's weird because I know who this person is, but seeing it written out, I was just like,
what is that?
Yeah. I was surprised when I told a few pals about it, how many people had they did know about him.
That's interesting.
Because that's what we were worried about. We thought it might be a bit too obscure. think it's alright. Maybe our friends are a little more intelligent than we thought. Oh no, or they're just fucking filth bags who like sleeping in markets. I don't know.
Yeah. Honestly, my exposure to Diogenes came exclusively through podcasts, so maybe that's a thing. But, what was your guys' like favorite part about making this record compared to maybe other records that you've made?
I guess, I mean, probably just from like, I think as a producer, there's a certain point in a record when you start to hear it and you're like, oh yeah, it's working, you know? Because there's always that anxiety in the beginning of the process. And I felt like I had a pretty good vision of what the songs were supposed to be sonically and where they were supposed to head. And we actually did it kind of backwards. We did drums and then I tracked my guitar. Because that, when we would have done bass was like in the thick of the first wave of COVID. And so we were like, I don't know, let's maybe just lock down. And so I thought I'll just chip away at my guitar by myself. And so I laid all my guitar down. I'm usually pretty methodical as a guitarist. I knew what I wanted to play. I knew what the tones were going to be. And I think for me it was when Owen came in and we started to reamp the guitar and bass, because we did it all DI and then reamped it, which is fun if you've never done it, you know, because then you can just focus on your performance. You play through some plugins digitally that sound all right, and then you focus on your performance. You pick your best takes, and then you run those through an app, right? And then so, especially if you're a producer who's in the band, I don't have to try to engineer my guitar and play my guitar at the same time. It's like I can play it in, and then we get to go fuck around with pedals and knobs and dial it in. And I think for me, when we started to actually hear the tones, I was like, oh shit, this sounds big, right? And especially as a guy that had been doing a lot of folk and roots records, I was like, I know that I can make us sound tight, and I know that I can make us sound talented, but can I make us sound fucking huge, right? And when we started to get the reamping, and then I played all my guitar parts twice, so we could just pan them left and right, and I was hoping they'd be gigantic. And then I ran them through 2 different rigs. And yeah, I think for me, when I heard that back, I was just like, it was kind of a sigh of relief, right? Because I did pitch to the guys. I was like, let me do the record. Like, I think I can do this.
I was definitely tentative. I just thought, I was a little worried. I was just like, too close to it, or if we start getting into it and Alex might not be as good as we thought he might be.
Well, and theoretically, I mean, if I was shitting the bed and they had to tell me that, what a fucking disaster.
I'd have to ditch an album halfway through.
It would be bad. I wouldn't be in the band anymore. Bro, like, it would be bad, right, if I couldn't do it.
Plus, we spunked all our band money on Barta.
So at least there was that. But yeah, I mean, because Kirill made big sounding stuff, right? And he'd be doing rock for a long time, whereas I'd been doing softer stuff. So it was kind of like this sense of like, I used to play heavy music, then I went through a pretty long phase of playing in pretty mellow bands. I believed I could-ish, you know, but I think when we heard it back, I was like, oh, sweet, this is working, you know? So,
I think for me, the best part of it was just the freedom of not having to stress so much. It was, if something didn't go quite right, I could probably go back the next day. Because I'm working on our schedule, not another producer's schedule who might be doing 5 other bands at the time. But Kirill is obviously busy because he's so talented. So it was nice to not have to worry about, all right, can I do this vocal for these songs in 4 weeks' time? And I'll do the other ones in 8 weeks because you're a bit. Whereas it's like, can I come around to yours tomorrow?
Yeah.
So there was one night I went round and I definitely hadn't been taking care of my voice over COVID because I knew I didn't have shows, right? So I went out and it was fine. I was like, you know what, that's fine. I need to, it could be better. And then the next day I went and I just felt so much better. And that kind of freedom to do that was a lot nicer. And again, just the time to be able to spend 5 hours instead of 2 hours in a session, or 4 weeks instead of a weekend, you know, especially because we were doing the 8 songs rather than 5 or 6. It was really important to have that freedom. And Alex was just fantastic the way he's a very talented ear. Just picks up little things that you would never maybe normally notice. And we're kind of a gritty band, so it's nice for him to add little pretty bits every now and then. Because the last album, the last EP, I was really happy with, but it was very fast and gritty. And this one is still gritty and it's still Free the Cynics, but I feel like you can tell there's a bit more space in there. And that meant a lot. I think that was good for all of them.
No, like, and that's the thing, right? It's like when you're paying for the time, you feel like you have to perform at that moment. Right?
Yeah, and there's advantages to that.
Yeah, no, totally.
Yeah, I mean, this was the first time I've ever recorded. I'm talking about ever, like even back home, where I've done kind of parts of songs one at a time.
Yeah.
Whereas before I didn't like that. I kind of saw it as inauthentic a little bit.
Yeah.
Which was just me being stupid. But this time I could see a bit. Maybe I'm getting older, but I could see it was. I could do a verse here and a verse there rather than have to go through the whole song and go. I need to get it in one take or two takes. I got a little. It didn't matter so much. I was like, actually, maybe I need to just take a break here and go back to it.
I think that both have their advantages, right? Some people need deadlines. They need to be like, okay, you need to get it good in this take. Right?
I am that person, and he gave me those deadlines. But I had a lot of time to prepare. Because we got the drums. I was the last one to go in, so that was nice. And like I say, Alex can tell me if I'm sounding like shit.
Well, I mean, one of the things that I think I had to focus on with the record, and actually, it's funny, I think you always internalize certain voices, and they're fairly limited in the end in terms of what you're basing, certain kind of ideas or approaches on. But I remember talking with Jordan from the Ashley 100, and he was like, he knew we were going to do the new record, and I was shooting the shit with him, and he was like, I love that there's always that edge to the Free the Cynic stuff. And so that was one of the interesting things. I had that in my head with the record where it was like, I knew that you guys had recorded with Kirill on a budget, and there was always takes on it that were like, nah, Rich could have done that better. For good and for worse, I think, right? It's like if it's too polished, it's going to lose any punk rock edge that it's got. It's going to lose its kind of grit and heart.
Yeah.
But also, like, I want it to be, I want to highlight Rich's voice and what he can do and really showcase that. And so that was in my head a lot too, around like, let's not overproduce it, but let's also let's fucking shoot, let's go big, because some of his vocal parts are fucking gigantic on it. Like, there's some notes. I mean, that last track before Ainsley.
Oh, you'll be so impressed until you hear Ainsley. Is it too late to delete that part?
Mixing that was funny, right? Because it's like, Rich goes up fucking huge. Like, the first 3 notes before you get to that, I can't even hit, I don't think, and then you hit that last one.
To be honest, that last song was, I'm definitely not going to go into a whole lot of detail, but it was written last March-ish, last May. I was not ashamed. I wasn't feeling very good. I wasn't living very well, and things were going wrong. It was really bad, and I let some people down that mean a lot to me. And so when I was writing that song, it was really raw. But again, this was a song that we couldn't get right, and I knew I'd written some good lyrics to it. And I was like, maybe that's why I let it come back. But I was like, yeah, I wanted to get it right, and then when I was when we were recording it, I was like, I want to make sure it's like feel that was a thing that was. I wanted to get back to when I wrote it, to have that same feeling, that emotion to it. And then when Ainsley came in, she doesn't even know why that song is how it is. She made it so much more in the theme of how I wanted it to be.
Yeah.
Just couldn't have worked any better. She just.
I think it adds a female element to it that's true to the experience. It's true to the vibe of what was going on, and I mean, yeah, it also just good.
It just sounds fucking good. Because we were a little worried. We sent it to a couple of people, and they were like, and we were like, is this too dramatic? Is this too much? And they're like, nah, man. It's like it's got a whole Pink Floyd type thing to it. Yeah. There's a couple other parts. I mean, there's that song Diogenes Market where we're talking about Alex, just without anyone asking him to do it, did this whole reprise at the end where he did a bunch of backward vocals and brought one of the riffs in from one of the earlier songs at the end and stuff like that. To me,
I thought it was funny because I don't even know how you listen to digital things backwards. You'd have to go to a lot of work to do it. But there's like if you listen to that backwards, there's a bunch of like messages that tie.
So I was trying to work out. Okay, this may be a conversation for off air. I was trying to work out what it is I'm saying backwards. So I said a lot of shit in that vocal booth that I'd rather not get worked out.
No, it's mostly you singing things from other songs that
there's a little chat bit,
and I pulled them and then reversed them.
But yeah, honestly, it's one of my favorite parts of the album. Is not even one of the songs. It's that. It's just, and I think it's Alex flexing his production muscles a little bit, but in a way that works really well. And there's not a whole lot of song-to-song transition on the album, so that really works. And it's a really beautiful piece of music just on its own after that song finishes.
I like that I feel like that it makes it kind of feel like that track is the last track on the record, but then there's one more track
and it goes into that big heavy,
which I think can be a disappointment. And like, you know, you might have favorite records. I can think of a couple where like you're like, oh, that should have been the last track, you know? I mean, the first one that comes to my mind is like if you ever got into Pure Comedy by Father John Misty, there's a song called Getting Old on Magic Mountain that's like fucking unreal. It's the last track, and then there's like one or two after, and I'm like, God damn it, right? To me, like, my hope is that feels like the last track, but then I'll only do it once. It's still after it, and then I think then it's like, oh damn, that's the last track.
I think this is the first one we've done where it's been a piece of work on its own rather than 6 songs that make up an EP. This is 8 songs. I feel that they start really Free the Cynics and cheeky, and then it gets kind of bigger and bigger as it goes on, and then that just the way that the last 2 songs end, I think really it's exactly what we wanted to be, to make it sound like.
And that is one thing I would say about the album is it is like the entire thing is it's an experience, you know what I mean? It's not just a piece like it's not just a collection of songs. It is an album, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
I hope it is.
I mean, they were all written very close together, really. I mean, the other ones we've done, they have been kind of stretched out, and there've been songs from here and there, but this one it feels like it really is like a new Free the Cynics album with the new members, and it does, that's pretty heavy moments, kind of nice poppy moments.
You know, it's rises and falls. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the mark of any good album has rises and falls, and this album definitely has it, but it's cohesive. It sounds like all the songs should be on that album. It's not just a collection of songs. It is a piece of work, you know? Like, it's a thing that you want to listen from front to back. So,
I'm glad you said that.
Yeah.
We worked really hard on that. So
I think Rich sat back and I mean, the whole time we were, I didn't really know. You know, I was just focused on each song, and Rich is responsible for sitting back, and you listened to him a bunch of times and posed a bunch of different orders, and I think you did a good job.
I worked from home. I had a lot of time on that.
Yeah.
But no, I think it was one of those where you just had to work out the track listing a bit more carefully than maybe the other one.
And it's pretty short at the end of the day.
So is it? I mean,
it's like half an hour.
Half an hour for an 8-song album.
Half hour power.
There is another song we really wanted to put on there, but we
we wrote it too late.
We wrote it after we had already put all the tracks in.
So we thought, let's put it out as a single because it's probably not part of the next record.
I'm gutted we couldn't put it on the album. It was too late.
I do think the stuff we write for our next record will be different. I don't know that we know how yet, but it will be.
I think so. I think we've been, the whole band, which this never happens to us, but the whole band have been really influenced by idols a lot. Like Fontaine's DC, I don't know if you've been any of those guys, but I would strongly suggest idols.
Yeah, something like the UK post-punk.
Okay.
It's weird. Idols have taken the old 80s right-wing punk, the Dr. Martens skinhead punk, but made it, all the lyrics are left-wing, and there's no point in me trying to explain idols. You should just listen.
Dude, it's great. It's fucking
I'll send you a couple of songs.
Yeah, no.
But I think I don't know, it's weird, because we don't want to, everyone knows that I love idols and we love it, so we don't want any of the album to really sound like idols. We don't want to be ripping stuff up. But that Dollarama Prima Donna is definitely it's like a Ramones Idol song.
Yeah,
the chorus is untouchable. And the chorus is just a repeated fucking shouty, beautiful, like, it's just like punk and pop, right? But not pop punk. It's like weird heavy punk with a stupid message. Yeah, it's like really like punk but saying fucking nothing apart from a stolen bike.
Yeah, it's
the most white
privilege
punk song.
I'm upset I was drinking on a weeknight and my bike got stolen.
Wait, are we writing songs about fucking meth addicts? Is that what we're doing?
I don't know what we're doing.
Fucking Third Eye Blind did it.
It's true. Successfully.
Yeah.
Very successfully.
But yeah, it's that was an odd evening.
I'm like super happy that you shared that story with me because that was amazing.
Yeah.
I'm like very excited to hear that song. I guess just close this out. Diogenes available November 13th.
Friday the 13th
Friday
of
the
November.
13th.
Yeah.
Release show is the same date. It's happening at Dickens.
Yeah, with support from Aruba.
Aruba,
They're fucking the most fun band in Calgary.
Super fun, yeah.
And also Niku, who fucking came out of nowhere and just killed it. John David, full band. So Darren and Kenton from Black Phoenix Orchestra, they're finally getting a full band together. This will be their first full band show. And the tickets will go real fast because it's Dickens is at, I think, 80 capacity? They're it's all seated.
Yeah.
So yeah,
there's very limited tickets available.
There's already a bunch gone, so yeah. We're really excited. We want to show the album to everyone, and we appreciate you giving us a chance to talk about it.
Oh yeah, of course.
For so long.
Yeah, thanks for indulging us.
This is good.
I have an excuse. And Lauren's like, how's it going? I'm like, this guy's a chatter. I'm sorry.
I'm trying to get out of here.
Still here. 2 hours after you leave, I'll still be saying you're here. As long as she doesn't turn up, we're good.
Honestly, like these type of interviews are my favorite type of interviews because they don't feel like interviews. They're just conversations. We're just shooting the shit. Like
we like it because it's nice to do the non-uniform questions.
Yeah.
Like, where are you from? What's the album about? Like, why did you write it?
I like doing it like it's just a conversation. We're hanging out.
It's the best way.
We're having some beers. Like, that was lots of fun. Like, the story. This was lots of fun, guys. Like, seriously.
You'll be the first person we send Dollarama to.
Yeah, we'll give you the sneak peek.
That's awesome. Thank you very much, guys.
Oh, no, thank you, Cody.
So,
it means a lot that you got in touch.
Yeah, no, like, honestly, this was so much fun. Diogenes is out November 13th. All the links to where to find you guys will be in the social, or will be in the episode notes. So
we'll share it everywhere.
Yeah, and like seriously, thank you.
Thank you, man. That was good.
Yeah.
Great to see you again.
If you like this episode of Groove Talk, why not leave a review? You can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, or pretty much anywhere that you listen to podcasts. Help us break through those evil algorithms and reach the most amount of glorious listeners that we possibly can. For up-to-date information on the show, you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And you can find us at Froggy Style Productions. For more ways to support the show, visit fsproductions.ca.